Welcome to the Empowering Minds Mental Health Podcast, where we dive deep into the tools and strategies that help us cultivate mental well being and personal growth. Today, I have a special guest, author Brady Gunn, who has transformed his own battle with overthinking, anxiety, stress into a powerful practice he calls the art of shh. If you've ever felt trapped in a never ending loop of self doubt, worry, or over analysis or overthinking, this conversation is for you. Brady's approach offers a way to break free from the mental noise and reconnect with your intuition. So I hope that you're ready to explore how silence, presence, and intentional thought management can change your life. Welcome, Brady, and thank you for coming on.
G'day from Australia. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you again for coming on. So I want to just jump right into the questions. I want to ask you first, what inspired you to create the art of and how did it help you personally break free from overthinking?
I was a pretty unhappy kid, very unhappy child, very unhappy teenager, and got kicked out of school and went down that sort of path for quite a while, and then was quite an unhappy and confused adult for lots of the reasons that we've all got of what happened when I was a kid, and we've all got a story and then it culminated in a 7 or 8 year depression, which started sort of late 20s, and I got really bad. I was at certain stages. I just sort of thought about killing myself every day, and at the end, towards the end of that, I just got fed up with it. I just sort of almost turned around. It's like I was being chased by this depression bear of the thoughts that were in my head of the past and the speculation and the expectation and judging everybody and this constant hamster wheel of self-annihilation in whatever way, shape or form. It was almost like you're sort of being chased by those thoughts. And then one day I just had enough. I just turned around and just faced the bear and I'm not running from this anymore. Do what you got to do because I can't live like this. And at that point, I realised that the bear was sort of in a cage, so to speak. It was all in my head. All of it was in my head, the whole thing. And so I started at that point started realising where the thoughts that were coming into my head were coming from, and how they were manifesting and what their purpose was. And so a lot of the thoughts that I would be having of self-annihilation, and when we've got all of these things that we paint a picture in our head of all the loneliness and the rejection and the only ifs, if I could just make some money, then this would be better, or if I could just find a partner, or if I could just get rid of this partner, or all of that sort of stuff comes into our head for the reason to sidetrack us, and is linked to our old pain. And so I started shushing it. I just started shushing all of the thoughts that I didn't want to have in my own head. They'd come into my head, and a lot of them start from the old pain in the body, and so you can feel them coming. And so I started shushing. I started choosing my thoughts. And then the real game starts, because if you're shushing your own thoughts, then who's who? It's almost like there's two things going on here. There's our true self, and just as a disclaimer too, our true self has thoughts. It's not, there's a difference between having thoughts and pondering and processing and developing and coming up with ideas, or that artistic side or whatever of having thoughts. And then there's this doing thinking of just this rat in your head just going around and around and around. They're two very, very separate things coming from two very separate places. And so what was all this doing thinking stuff? Who was it, and what was it, and why was it? And when I started shushing it down, I realised that a lot of that was coming from my old pain. A lot of that was coming from the rejection that I had when I was a kid, the loneliness I'd experienced because of that, the story that I'd continued to compound by creating rejection in my life. And it's just this crazy sort of tumbling down tumbling into life of just sort of recreating our own patterns. And so that was one thing, that this created self, this programmed self, this self that I thought was me. I thought me thinking was me, but it wasn't. It was all of this old pain, and it was all of this programming. And so once I'd started dissecting that and started choosing my thoughts, then the old pain came out of my body, because I wasn't labeling it anymore. And so a lot of the thoughts that we have and the labels that we put on things, loneliness was a big one for me. So when I was calling something loneliness, I was giving it a foothold and meaning. And so I'm lonely because of what happened when I was a child, and everybody else has got a partner and I don't, and there's something wrong with me because all of those, and so I put the label of loneliness, and all of this scaffolding would come down off this. I'd give it meaning and footholds and points of reference, and and that would be all in my head. Whereas if I didn't call it loneliness, if I just let that feeling of what I used to call loneliness be in my body, I cried and cried and cried and heaved and shaked, and it was quite physical for me, just getting the old pain physically out of my body. But once that old pain was gone, then it wasn't choosing, it was choosing my thoughts. So then I wasn't having these old thoughts that were then perpetually not being labeled by the pain that was creating it in the first place. And then I was in my intuition. So there's the long answer. There's the short, long answer.
Okay, that makes sense. It sounds like once you got to the root cause of the negative thoughts, you were able to shush that noise out and kind of learn you some coping skills to move forward.
Well, it happens at the same time because when
Mhm.
you start having a thought and you start and shushing it. So let's just use judgment. So I would judge people all the time to sort of create this sort of competition of me trying to lever myself up or push them down. Didn't mean any of it. It wasn't even me. But I'd walk out onto the street and I'd see someone that, like a kid with a hat on or something, that thought he was tough, and I would go to judge that kid. But if I went to judge that kid and say, "Oh, you think you're a gang member or you think you're tough or something," and I didn't, then I'd shush that. So I'd shush the thoughts, but then the feeling of that judgment, which was my pain, it was nothing to do with that little kid, would be in my body. And then that pain could come out, but it was the pain that was labeling it in the first place. So you're playing this game of chicken and egg all the time, of sort of quietening the mind, but feeling the feeling. So I would feel don't call it loneliness, but feel the feeling of loneliness. It's not just shushing everything out in the corner. It's learning how to not think so much,
Mhm.
dissociate the old pain or the body or the feeling with the brain, and then feel the thought of loneliness, which is a much, much harder thing to do rather than just try to figure it out or try to get
Mhm.
over it or get over yourself or think positive. That's exactly the thing not to do. Don't call it anything, but feel our feelings. Very, very important. And then,
Mhm.
and then it's a constant sort of game of cops and robbers with yourself when when that battle happens in your head of you trying to
Yeah.
sort of get yourself back again, but then it's like this good cop, bad cop on each shoulder, and it's this constant battle. It's so tiring. It keeps you awake at night. And so you're just
Yeah.
slowly, slowly, slowly just edging back down of just no more like less cops, less robbers, and then you're just being. You're not trading in the currency of thoughts and words. You're just more trading in the currency of energy and intuition, which is source energy, which is sort of who we are. And then you're not getting moved by so much. If someone breaks up with you, it's not moving you so much because there's no meaning in it. Whatever happens in life, you're just much more in flow, much more in flow. That you can live in that place of flow where people sort of play music and they lose time, or they're painting art, or they're playing sport, or they're with their friends. You can live there, and when you look at that, where that place is, it's just a place of no thought. You're in flow, and so that's the goal: is live in a place with no thinking. Having
Mhm.
thoughts is a different thing, but living in that place of energy where you're totally in tune with yourself and others in the world. And
I get it. I sometimes have to remind my heart to speak positive to my brain because I used to have a lot of negative thoughts and I couldn't figure out like where they were coming from. And
mm,
so yeah, I started with therapy and I kind of got to the root cause. And you are right, it was linked to some things that had happened in my childhood and some of my adulthood, and I had never addressed it. So I developed, I mean, even about myself, like low self esteem, all kinds of stuff. I was thinking negative
mm.
about myself. So I'm glad that I've, you know, got some therapy and worked through that. And so I like this art of shush. That's very good. So speaking of that, what are some common misconceptions about controlling our thoughts, and how does the art of shush challenge them?
I think the most common misconception about thoughts is that we have to control them. The only way to depower something is to just let it be there. There's no fight without a foe. And I was fighting myself the whole time. I was playing this game of cops and robbers. I was trying to just reason with myself and do deals and stuff. And if this would happen, then I promise I'll be this. And this constant sort of trying to control this thought, or trying to reason with it, or just being scared of my own head. Whereas the only true way that I found to really depower my brain, my mind, was to just let it be there. It would to surrender to the energy. That's not giving up. That's not letting it win. That's actually being a bigger man. There's no fight without a foe. And so,
Hmm.
instead, when it would punch me, when it would say, "Yeah, you're a piece of shit," I just wouldn't react at all. I just
Mhm.
it would punch me with that thought, and I would just I wouldn't flinch. I wouldn't fight it back. I wouldn't run away or nothing. I just like, you have no power over me whatsoever, and your brain doesn't. When you really actually look at those thoughts and you step back with a bit of perspective and find a bigger space, then you realize that all of that bear is in a cage. It can't get you. It's all in your head. The past is gone. The present hasn't happened yet. All of those people aren't doing anything to you right now. The
Mhm.
whole thing, that whole depression, all of that sabotage that I did in my life, all of that chaos that I created, all of those people that I brought into me, was all in my head. My head did the whole thing,
Mhm.
and you can separate it from it. But to the only true way to truly separate it is not to try to separate it. It's to find a big enough space. And so instead of small thoughts pinging around imagine a dome over your head kind of thing, small thoughts pinging around in a small space which we used to be in, like I'm lonely and I'm broke and I'm an idiot and all of this little sort of stuff. But if you can find a bigger space where you're moving outwards, then the thoughts are have to travel further. So the sonar has further to travel off. And so it's not like though it's what happened to us didn't not happen. It will always have happened in the story. But if we're in a bigger space, they're a grain of sand now, whereas they used to be the size of a brick right in my head. I'm much bigger. I've created a bigger space, and so it shrinks in relation. But even if it was a brick, I'm the size of the universe. So they're the same size. I could still reach out and grab onto what happened to me when I was a child right now, but I'm much bigger, so it's much less. So I think if you let it be there, then you can create a big enough space for it to just dissolve into insignificance. So I think it's when we're young, we're taught don't touch the hot stove because that equals pain, but try and figure out that maths problem. And when we get older, we try to do that with emotions. We try to don't go near that pain. Drink, take drug, like whatever, antidepressants, take it out on other people, whatever, but just don't sit on the lounge and cry out and feel the pain of what happened to us when we were a kid. But we sit there and try and figure it out. If only this and only that, and why did that happen? And we try to figure out the maths problem of our emotions. All the languages of all the dictionaries of all the words in 1,000 years can figure out why that man did that to you. No, there's no reason for it. I mean, there's reason, but there's no reason for it. You just have to let it be there and dissipate it into a much bigger space and feel the pain of it. That's how to unlock it. Go into the feelings. And when I was doing this, I cried and cried and cried and cried every night for about 3 years, just bawling, heaving, sobbing, tears of shaking and like having big spasms and everything of just doing an exorcism. Like I was physically removing that old energy which was stored in my body, and that's why I had a whole heap of health problems as well, because that old energy of those memories was stored in my body, made me sick, and it had to come out, and it did physically.
Oh, wow. You've made a lot of good points because I was listening to you and I was like, he's kind of talking about me a little bit because I used to have I was wanting to like you said, like control my thoughts. And I noticed when I did that, it really increased my anxiety, like went through the roof. And I wasn't able to sleep well at night, or either I would fall asleep early and then I would wake up like midnight and I would never go back to sleep. And this is like an ongoing cycle. And so
Mm.
it just got to the point where I would like crash and burn because I was so tired. And so with that, it also increased stress in my life. I went from a size 8 to a size 3, 4, just from like negative thinking and not sleeping
Mm.
well and not eating well. And so that's how
Yeah.
it impacted me. And last month was stress awareness month. And so I had a question I wanted to ask you. Beyond reducing stress and anxiety, what other transformations have you seen in people who adopt the art of shush in their daily lives?
It's it's such an easy tool, and that was why
Mhm.
the art of shush is so appealing to so many people. Is that it's just quite a thin little book, and it's a very simple process. There's not much to it at all, and so you can use it if you're an atheist skeptic, then you can use it to just shush your mind because you're trying to argue with yourself whether you want to go to the gym or not. And so you're just shushing the mind that says, no, I want to go home, and you go to the gym. So you can use it as at this very surface level of this
Mhm.
experience we call life. The thing, or anywhere in between, going very deep spiritually. And it wouldn't matter what religion you are either. It's got nothing to do with religion or any type of spirituality. But when you really actually start separating yourself from yourself and start asking the question, well, who's who here? And you start really choosing your true self, that goes really, really deep, because then to do that, you start losing a lot of your points of reference. So you start losing a lot of your identity in that. Without your old pain, because we carry a lot of our old pain as our identity. So you start losing a lot of your identity when you start really shushing heavily. And then you start learning that we are actually energy. I mean, quantum physics proves that we're just vibrating atoms in the shape. I'm just Brady in a light suit right now. There's nothing there, scientifically proven. And so if that's true, then what's the difference between you and me? What's in between us right now? The universe there's 2 trillion galaxies in the universe, so it's massive universe out there. And then you go into quarks and stuff inside of us, and then it's almost the same. So where are we sitting in this space? And how do we vibrate in love, which is that essential energy that we're sort of all aiming for, is just that flow of love, which is what we are anyway. So there's only deviations from there. And so you can use the art of shush to go really, really light or really, really deep. But ultimately, the challenge that a lot of us are facing, particularly in this day and age, is just all the noise. There's so much noise. There's so much expectation. There's so much competition. There's so much media. There's so much technology. There's so much vested interests. I mean, what's happened over the last 5 years with that COVID nonsense, and what continues to happen of people who are trying to sort of hijack us and our world and our kids, essentially. How do we block out that noise? The mind is more easily hijacked now and busier and noisier than ever. And so I think it's the great challenge of us today, and probably always has been, but certainly today, is to separate ourselves from ourselves, learn how to not think so much, and be much healthier in our intuition. If you do look at the last 5 years, sick people have done some very sick things to some very sick people. Society is very sick, and it's run by some very sick people, and they're doing very sick things. If society wasn't sick, these sick people wouldn't even exist, let alone be able to do sick things. The project right now is not for us to save the world. The project is for us to save us. When we're fully rounded, well-connected, healthy, spiritual, grounded, connected with nature, community-driven, solid individuals, and we're not sick anymore, then this sickness in the world and these sick people running it just can't exist. We are the project right now, and all of the problem is us in our heads. If we could get rid of all of the shit in our heads and just be in source energy, in love, then the world would look totally different. And this is a major consciousness shift in the world right now, and that's why this last 5 years had to happen, is because it's forced us into finding what I'm talking about here, in whatever way, shape, or form.
Okay, so you mentioned about your book, and so I wanted to leave these last few minutes. If you could tell us, the viewers who will watch this later, where they can purchase your book from, if you want to share any contact information, maybe people want to get more information about your practice, and if you want to leave like any final or resonating thoughts that you want them to get from this podcast today.
All of my books I've written another, there's The Art of Shush 2 is coming, so I've written 4 books, but 3 of them are available on Amazon or bradygunn.com. And what resonated with me when you said that when this emotional sort of weight came onto you, and you went from a size 8 to a 3, 4, I think a lot of this emotional weight is manifesting in the physical right now. And so that weight that put onto you was emotional weight manifesting in the physical. And so when we lose the emotional weight, when we do the work and lose whatever happened to you emotionally, then the physical weight will continue to reflect that, and we'll lose the weight. And a lot of people who are really sick right now physically, or not happy with certain parts of their life, once you lose the emotional weight, once the mind stops weighing you down, then the reflection will happen in the physical. You will lose the weight, or you won't have the illnesses you have, or you'll find therapies that actually work rather than are doing you more harm. There's a direct relationship between the physical right now, in what's happening in the world, but also in our bodies, and the heaviness of the emotions and the mind.
All right, so I'll be in contact with you soon. Again, you said your books are on Amazon, or either they can go to your website, which is bradygunn.com.
Yeah, BRADYGUNN.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.
Have
You're
a good one.
amazing. See ya.
Thanks.